Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Well, happy Hump Day, everybody. It is June 12th, June 12th, June 17th. I can get that straight. June 17th. I know, I'll get it straight. 2020. I know the year. Well, days fly by this time of, what's going on in the world. We've got the whole COVID pandemic still going on, COVID-19, and that's what today's special show is about. It's about changes of COVID-19. We have a panel discussion coming up. We have San Diego Employment Attorney-Ward-Heinrichs joining us, cardiologist Dr. Jackie-Eubany, and also life coach Steve-Piacente joining us. So we're going to be having a conversation about what's happening now with COVID, moving forward in life, because everybody's been affected by this, not just across the country, but around the world for quite a few months now. We're your hosts, Nancy and Lisa. We are the mother-daughter travel team on the Love Your Parks tour. We're the publishers of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine and Parks and Travel magazine, and you can keep up with everything we do. Just go to BigBlendMagazines.com and also BigBlendRadio.com. And today we're broadcasting live from Florence, which is known as the antique capital of Colorado. We're in the southwest corner. And it's an interesting day. We talk about change. It's been beautiful blue skies, and now today we're covered in smoke from all the fires happening in southern Colorado. So everyone affected by that, especially in the path of fire, we hope you are doing okay. So I want to start. We've got Ward-Heinrichs here. We've got Steve-Piacente, also Dr. Jackie-Eubany, but I want to bring her on first because she's in the middle of working with patients. And, she is a cardiologist. She's an electrophysiologist and also author of the best-selling book, Women and Heart Disease, The Real Story. You can get it on Amazon, and you can go to our website, womenandheartdiseasebook.com. So welcome, Dr. Jackie. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's good to have you back on this show. It's really good to have you back on this show. And I know this is a time of stress and change, and I know you've only got a few minutes with us, but I just wanted to touch base that also I know that you're based in Orange County, California, and so you've got two wellness institutes. You've got the Cardiovascular Wellness Institute in two different locations. Are you able to see patients, or are you doing more telehealth? Is that kind of your big change?
Yeah, so we're doing mostly telehealth where patients are calling in, and either through video conferencing or telephone, depending on how comfortable patients are with either. We're just having a regular office visit that way to avoid, them coming in here and avoid the spread of COVID, because my patient population tend to be the patients with the highest risk because they have a lot of medical conditions. Their heart, they have hypertension, heart disease, they've had heart attacks, they have heart failure. So they're among the highest risk for COVID, and I would much rather, keep them as safe as possible. But they still need to see the doctor. They still need to see me. We still need to talk about their medications and all those things because, face it, they're at risk of dying for their cardiac conditions, so they need medical attention. But we don't need to further increase their risk for COVID if they don't have to come into the clinic.
Right. Okay. So you got that as a change for you. Again, everyone, Dr. Jackie-Eubany's website is womenandheartdiseasebook.com. And we have everyone on the show today for the panel discussion. They're all Big Blend Radio experts and also editorial contributors. We also have Lee-Brovedani joining us. She is a leading trust expert across North America. She's known as the Trust Expert, and also she's an author. Her latest book is called Trust Me. And you can go to her website, LeeBrovedani.com, and that's Lee, L-E-A, Brovedani.com. So, Lee, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. I was listening and trying to be quiet and being on mute because I wanted to hear everything that was said.
Well, I'm glad you could join us, and I just wanted to ask you, too, because Dr. Jackie is doing a lot in regards to telehealth and having to go more virtual. Are you finding that in your industry? Because I know you're used to being a speaker and going to conventions and then also going into offices and working with leadership. Are you finding that you're doing more online as well?
Yes, I just finished 2 full days, so like 2 6.5, 7-hour days where I was training. So a session in the morning, a session in the afternoon. And then, like it was all online, which is completely different because you're staring at a little screen and trying to look animated and not crazy.
Right.
So, it was completely different.
It is different. I want to go over to Steve Piacente. Steve is a former journalist turned life coach, so he knows about change. And now we're going to dig in deeper with him later. I just want to get everybody on board here. But he is certified by the International Coach Federation. He's also the director of training at the Communications Center in Washington, D.C. He's an award-winning author of 3 novels. We love them all, Pretender, Bella, and Bootlicker. And his latest book is Your New Fighting Stance, Good Enough Isn't, and You Know It. You can keep up with Steve at stevepiacente.com. Steve, welcome back. You were on the show a few months ago as soon as the COVID thing happened and said that we talked about the case for crisis opportunity, that things like this really do change us. Are you still seeing that there is still a case for crisis opportunity?
Well, actually I am, Lisa, and thanks for having me on, and hi to all my fellow panelists. It's nice to meet you, even if it's virtually. Yeah, I do. My take on all of this, Lisa, is that, as you've heard me say before, we kind of tend to treat life as the express bus instead of the local. We get on, we think we're headed for a certain destination, and then it seems like we're going in the right direction, and we too infrequently stop to challenge ourselves and figure out why we're still on this particular bus. And for me, what coronavirus has done, acknowledging all the bad that it's done, is that it's actually shaken up people a little bit, because when we go back to what we used to think of as normal, I think a lot more people are questioning what that new normal is going to be, and is what we're going back to what we really want to go back to. So we have kind of interrupted the status quo, and I believe that's why I call it crisis opportunity. It's giving people a chance to rethink where they were headed on that original bus.
Great. I know we're going to dig into more on that, but real quick, Nancy, hold on 1 second, because I know Dr. Jackie is going to bring Ward on. Ward is Ward-Heinrichs, San Diego, an employment attorney. He's been on our show for years talking about benefits for employees and employment. Actually the employers and employees' benefits, and then all the issues surrounding them. So laws regarding labor laws, also independent contractors has been a big conversation of late. But right now I think there's benefits. There's also new things happening with the Supreme Court in regards to LGBTQ employment discrimination, and that was up yesterday, down today, up, down. We don't know where it is. But you can keep up with Ward at bestemploymentattorney.com. I know, Ward, what is going on in your world? I mean, are you like stuck to the computer now? Or are you still seeing people? What's happening?
I do see a few people, but not very often, and we're pretty careful when we do it. But most of my business, when it's interaction with clients, has been by telephone and email anyway, so that hasn't changed drastically. What has changed is the meetings, referral group meetings, things like that. No one's meeting face-to-face for those things, and we've been doing lots and lots of, virtual meetings. So that's the part that's changed for me. Now, it's interesting that you brought up the Supreme Court case. And I don't even know the name of it, so I'm embarrassed about that. But I did read what happened there, or I heard about what happened there. And that's been going on in California for a long time. I mean, you can't discriminate against anyone based on their sex or their sexual orientation in California. That's been here for years. So for us here, that hasn't that changed too much. But for the rest of the country, I think that said there was 20 or 25 states that had not recognized that as a protected group, and now they are throughout the nation. So that for the nation, that's a pretty big change.
Right. Wow. I want to go back to Dr. Jackie on this, because Dr. Jackie, I know you have to go. You have patients to see, as always. Dr. Jackie, in regards to this whole COVID situation, last time you were on the show, you really talked about wear your mask. This is really important. And right now, travel is happening. I know Nancy and I are traveling, and travel has changed. Let me tell you, Nancy and I have been through all kinds of interesting changes over the last month or two. 3 or 4. And at the same time, Dr. Jackie, things are opening up, and then some people are running around going, who cares? And, I mean, I'm seeing, cases rise, like in Arizona is in big trouble because they opened up, and then Florida opened up beaches, restaurants, bars closed it. So the mask thing seems to still be in place, but I also wonder about, we talk about discrimination and what's going on with that in regards to the LGBTQ community, but I also look at what's going on in regards to the protests in the streets, if that being an issue for the pandemic of, everyone going out there that protest, that's our First Amendment, but we also have to be careful that we don't spread it, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I mean, the virus is spread by human contact or close human contact. So whenever you're in a situation where there's a lot of people in a close human contact, especially, the highest risk is when you're indoors. There's always that high risk of spreading the disease when you're really close to people. So, yeah, unfortunately, large crowds gathering, especially in enclosed environments, increases your risk for developing COVID. But, yeah, but like you said, the country is opening up now. We've been quarantined for 3 months. We can't be quarantined for much longer than that. Everyone can attest to. We have to get back to work. But we really have to be vigilant now because really the virus can really spread and get out of control like it did when it first started. So it's so much more important now that you're wearing your face mask when you go out. You should try to, avoid going out as much as possible. But if you have to go, you should go. You should just make sure you wear your mask and continue to maintain safe distancing with people close by. And you should just always try to continue to wash your hands as frequently and as often as you want. And they say, you want to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds because that has been shown to kill the virus. I know things are opening up. People are excited and they want to go out and party, but really now is not the time for that because if we have such a surge in this virus, our healthcare system is going to be overwhelmed. And when the healthcare system gets overwhelmed and we're not able to take care of people, then the death rates will definitely go up. So it's really important that you're.
Sounds like you're not recommending. Sounds like you're not recommending a big political rally.
I'm staying out of politics.
I'm for the rally.
I'm just speaking from a doctor standpoint and scientific standpoint. So you take my information and do with it.
I'm just going to go out on the limb and say what a big waste of time. No, come on, no. Rallies are important. I think people protesting using First Amendment right now, obviously there's an issue going on in our country that's been going on for a very, very long time. And it is at this point of some change needs to be happening. But there's also death that comes from this too, just from everyone getting together.
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about the rioters or the looters. I'm talking about good people doing stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, but then I want to ask Ward, like, if you go to a rally and you get sick, can you sue the person who put the rally on?
Oh,
not if you sign that disclaimer.
Exactly. Yeah. They're having the people sign a disclaimer that they're not going to sue.
Yeah, and I think you got a problem anyway because you don't have to go, so you're volunteering to go, even if you didn't sign a disclaimer. But a disclaimer will make that even more ironclad.
Yeah. So, Dr. Jackie, so we got the riots, not the riots, the protests, which is two different things. Looters and rioters, you guys are all in that other thing that we don't want to talk about you. I don't want to give you time of day because that's already hurting businesses, and there's a different people than people protesting. So there's protests. It's kind of calmed down a little bit. So there's that, but then people going out and vacationing, Dr. Jackie. So now you say wash hands. I've also seen all kinds of weird things about people saying don't use hand sanitizers, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, so when we're traveling, because I'll tell you, Nancy and I, listen, we had to fight for our hand sanitizers. Back off, everyone.
Big time.
We had to fight for it to get on the road again. But when you go out on the road now, because I know you got to go, but washing hands better than sanitizers. I've heard people get sick. People are getting sick from the chemical stuff and all that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, washing hands is best. But if you have a hand sanitizer, I say use it. you're going to be in certain situations where you don't have access to soap and water. And sanitizer is good for, killing the bacteria in your hand, because we know that's how you spread it, by touching things. So using the hand sanitizers is good.
Okay. And then also still see your doctor and stay in touch with your doctors. That was, I know, something you were also. Okay.
Yes,
so do that.
Absolutely. This is one of the things that we saw during the whole quarantine period, was that patients weren't going to see doctors or going to the emergency room when they were having heart attacks. There was a large decline in the number of patients coming in with heart attacks and strokes and all those things. And we know that those things are still happening. So people are basically probably just staying at home and just dying from these conditions. But we'll find out more as time goes on. But I can continue to encourage my patients, if you are having signs and symptoms of a heart attack and a stroke, you really should go to the emergency room. You should be, the emergency room is safe. You're less likely to catch the COVID there, and you're more likely to die from a heart attack if you don't go and seek medical attention.
When you go to the doctor places, they have those little guns. Some of them are pink, some of them are green. There's different colors of guns. Temperature guns. They have those little temperature guns. They check you out on your forehead. I was like, am I going to get a little thingy on my forehead? But I didn't. But, Lee, we could talk about that because you just came back from India, so that's good. But the whole quarantine thing, I mean, that's serious. Lee, you went through that, the quarantine thing in India, which is a huge deal. Going and traveling and coming back.
We felt fairly safe when we were in India because they were on top of it. We couldn't walk into a hotel without having our temperature checked, and we had to answer questions. So every single place we went, they repeated that whole process. And then at one of the hotels, we had, before they would even let us check in, we had to go to the health clinic, get checked out by a doctor there, and be certified that we were COVID-free before they would allow us to even check in at the hotel.
Wow. That's not happening here.
We found actually the all of the things that were happening in India happened way before they happened in the United States.
Wow.
See, I think, it's interesting. That was it's interesting how the world kind of, did its thing. So and Dr. Jackie says goodbye to everybody, by the way. She has to run.
Bye, Dr. Jackie.
Bye. You.
And everyone, again, womenandheartdiseasebook.com is the place to go for Dr. Jackie, and also you can see her up on blendradioandtv.com, everyone we're talking with today. But it is important to talk about health because that's something that is important. So I want to start with you, Ward, on this, the health thing. So a lot of people working from home is a very interesting thing. That's got to make changes because suddenly now you're required to work from home. Maybe your internet has to be bumped up. I don't know if you're seeing any of this part in your practice, but suddenly you're paying more for internet maybe, or maybe your provider's being nice, but they're going to get you later. They're all coming back for you. Maybe suddenly you have to pay more for parking or something. There's going to be changes for the folks working at home. Have you seen that part of it? Are companies working with employees to get them through it, that kind of thing?
Well, most of my employer clients have businesses like restaurants, and they were only doing, for restaurants in particular, they were only doing takeout for the longest time, and then just about 2 weeks ago they opened it up with restrictions, so you could actually go in again. So in those situations, it was impossible for anyone to work from home. Now, I haven't run into this, but there certainly is a lot more, or there are a lot more people working from home. And you mentioned something very interesting, I thought. You said, well, what if you have to bump up your internet to make it work? Well, that could be a cost of doing business that at least under California law, and I think most states do this, that the company would have to pick up because you don't have to pay out of pocket as an employee to support the work that you do for the company. So that could be an expense, and honestly, I think that would be an expense pretty easily to argue anyway that the company should pick up. Now, some other things like, parking, maybe not, have to see the situation. But again, in California, if there's an increased expense of working from home, then that is probably something that, at least in California, that you really have to look at as a business to decide whether you need to pick that up and, whether you want to pick it up and whether you want these people working from home or you want to do something else. The unemployment rolls have increased dramatically, and so many people have opted for that. Many businesses have opted for that rather than keeping people employed, at least for the short term.
But this is also interesting in regards to restaurants, because people are laid off, and I just from our travels, we've seen a lot of restaurant owners, wineries, all kinds of industry, especially in the tourism, where people are like, hey, I'm getting more from unemployment instead of going back to work when the job opportunity is back. Have you seen any of that? And because it's kind of hurting.
That's a big issue.
Yeah.
But what I've been telling employers is there is a form that you fill out and give to the EDD. That's the agency that runs unemployment in California. And if you've offered the employee their old job back at their old wages, you can inform the EDD of that, and then the EDD will probably yank that unemployment. So honestly, it's pretty easily dealt with. But a lot of people don't know that. Now, the other thing I've run into, though, is with some of the smaller business, like dentists, they have a fear of putting off key employees. And so, is a good employee one who says, hey, yeah, I'll come back, or are they still a good employee if they go, no, I'd rather sit on my butt at home and collect unemployment? You got to make that value judgment. And then, but I've run into this where they go, you know what, I'm not going to fight them on this because I want them back in 6 months. And I don't want to maybe calling some type of inspector to see if I'm running my office correctly under the medical regulations that are required. So I've heard that. Both of those things I've heard.
Wow.
So there are instances when employers will strategically not fight that.
Oh, wow.
But, okay, so where do we stand with, like, somebody walks into a restaurant and then 10 days later has COVID? Can they go and say, I got it at the restaurant? Is there any stuff like that out there now where you can accuse somebody or a place that you went into of infecting you?
Well, I think you're going to have a hard time figuring out where you got it.
Yeah.
Because now, let's say that you stay at home and the only time you've been out in contact with other people is at the restaurant. Well, then you probably got it at the restaurant. So maybe you've got some kind of case there, or at least facts. Now, can you hold someone accountable under? Now, I haven't seen this. I have not seen this, but I'm just kind of going off the top of my head now. Can you hold someone accountable for that? I would say, well, if you saw breaches of COVID-19 security, then maybe.
Oh.
But if the employer, and again, I represent some restaurants, and the ones I know have been taking great pains to be safe. And so I would think under those circumstances that they'd have a pretty good defense against some type of claim. And again, in most cases, it's going to be you'd also be able to challenge. Well, where did you get it? Are you sure you got it here? Come on, and we're doing all this great stuff. So that's almost always going to be an issue. Now, you do bring up there's another issue that kind of touches on this. Employers, again, in California, I'm pretty sure across the nation, have to keep a healthy workplace.
Yeah.
So if an employer falls down, doesn't do that well enough, then there could be ramifications from employees. Maybe get sick. What I've seen, though, isn't that yet anyway, but where someone goes, hey, you're not being safe, so I'm not coming in, and then they get terminated. Well, under that circumstance, if you can prove they're not being safe, I think that's probably a wrongful termination.
Oh my gosh, we're going to have like a crazy year ahead. This is going to get crazy. And I want to go to Steve Piacente on this, because I see this kind of thing happening where people quit their job, maybe get some kind of benefit somewhere, who knows, but maybe they're like, hey, I'm going to check in an early retirement, and make a career change, or I've been at home long enough now that I'm like, I don't trust, and I want to go to trust with Lee on this because, trust is, do I trust my company even coming back? Because a lot of companies just close their doors. So let's start with you, Steve. It could be termination. I don't want to go back to work because they're not being clean enough. That could be a lawsuit. It could be all kinds of things at this point. Are you seeing people change jobs now going, I got to do something?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of everything. Where people get terminated, that's a little bit different situation. What I was talking about a little bit earlier is when maybe their hours are cut back or they're furloughed for a certain amount of time, and they have to kind of take stock and see and really think about if I am able to go back to what I was doing, is that really what I want to do? And then on the other hand, if people decide they're going to take early retirement or a buyout or something like that, my strongest advice to them would be, do not do that until you have a plan on what you want to do next. Because that's what I think happens too often, is that it looks like it's a good deal, it looks like something that they want to do, but you know what? There's so many hours in the day, and if they don't think about how they're going to fill them up, being home is going to get old really, really fast.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's crazy. You go to crazy land. It's like prison. It's like, what?
Yeah.
When the whole COVID thing happened, like, what do you mean we can't travel? Like, screw that. But it happened. Everyone's going through this. So everyone's got those different stages. And you're right about that, having a plan, and how much harder is it now to have a plan to make change when things could change again?
Right. And as we're getting used to kind of this online, and Lee alluded to this before, in my role as at the Communication Center as training director, we have moved literally 100% of our in-person trainings to online. And something that I'm seeing a lot of is what we're calling Zoom fatigue or virtual exhaustion. And we kind of underestimated along the way the importance of being able to meet in person and to read body language and eye contact and all of those things. And it's just, we're just not quite wired to be doing things the way we're doing it right now. And I don't know about anybody else on the panel, but at the end of those long days that Lee was talking about before, I can tell you, it's just exhausting.
Yeah.
Well, we are herd animals, and I apologize to anybody who doesn't like that description, but we are herd animals, and we're meant to communicate with each other. And sorry, but if you go back to the human species, we're the ones who made fire. We're the ones who made language, even though we might negate that animals also made their own language. We just didn't understand them. So we're like, okay, you didn't talk like us, so you didn't talk. Quite wrong. But we are not meant to be loners. Some of us are, but that would be the few
1%,
versus the
majority.
Whole.
Yeah.
Yes. And so we are people who want to talk to each other. And this over a screen, it seems like Star Trek. Sorry, Star Trek, but Captain Kirk, are you there? And so we've been like catapulted into a realm that we've seen for years, but maybe weren't quite ready to go to as our be and only thing. Like, we're all going to work from home. We're all going to be virtual. And we're not going to talk to other people. We're going to have a distance, like a yardstick or two,
and
around
we're
us.
short under the table, with a nice tie on.
Yeah, and I mean, but we're not going to touch anybody.
Well, I would say it's even worse than that, because when we're having trouble with audio and there's that latency when people are speaking and their lips are not syncing up with the words quite right, and we're looking at those little Hollywood squares instead of people in the eye. Yeah, that's exhausting.
Yeah, and then there's the whole technology that when I put on the course, I went out and purchased a new camera, so a webcam, and then a new mic, and all of the equipment that you need, and then a platform that can actually accommodate, especially if you're training quite a few people. You want to have breakout rooms and quizzes and polls and tests and chat rooms and everything. It's a whole new learning curve to be able to put on a really effective online course. And then, like Steve said, I mean, everyone has said that you have the problem that the internet doesn't always work the way you want it to work.
Really? Welcome to the level of Huckster.
That's the one thing we can't buy.
Yeah, the internet. That's our whole life is about the internet, and it's really true. And how far
our life runs by the internet.
But there's also the big argument of do we want 5G, because there's all these tests on that too. So Elon Musk may hate me on that, but I think he's pretty cool. But at the same time, it's like it's about it.
If you have a dog or a cat or any kind of pet, and you decide, I am not going to communicate or pet my dog for 5 days, watch what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watch what happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Look at the dog face. That dog face he posted the other day. I'm just saying.
No, seriously.
It's interesting to me, too, because we've got all this virtual communication happening. Nancy and I do it with the radio shows. We love to do in person, too. That's always this interesting thing. Because you're always trying to picture the person on the other side. Maybe it's Zoom. We've done a lot of Zoom too, and it's just there's nothing like being in person. It's not the same. It's great to have technology so you can communicate overseas or out of the area, but there is nothing like in person. So, Lee, I wanted to go to you on this. So there's changes in careers possibly. There's laws. There's all kinds of different things happening with health. And it's going to keep changing, over the next few months. Where do we sit in regards to leadership? Even trusting your company is still there. Your employer could say, oh, no, we're going to be here. We're doing this and that. How is that working when you're communicating with your clientele? Are you seeing, the trust issue pop up in regards to the trust of, are you going to be there? And then even just going, hey, I'm going to trust you to do your work because you're at home. And maybe, you're saying, hey, I'm going to have my own schedule because, my dog wants to be fed at this time and that's what's going to happen.
And there was some interesting data that's coming out. So Trust Across America, which I'm affiliated with, did a survey to see what people thought. Did they want to go back into the office when the pandemic was done, and who knows when that's going to be, but 70% said that they would prefer to stay working at home.
Yeah.
Which surprised me.
Those are the ones without kids.
Yeah.
Well, see, if people can go back to work, it means that you could stay at home and work, and the kids are going to daycare. So there's that, too. So... you're looking at, there is a lot of things around trust. You have to be able to trust the company is giving you the true goods. And so I interviewed Harry Harrington, who's the CEO of NIC, and it's a $1.6 billion company. And one of the reasons I interviewed him is I first talked to him probably 6 or 7 years ago, and he had been interviewed by the New York Times as being someone who was highly trusted, and so I did the research and everything. And he was saying that he tries to be as transparent as possible. So it's, here's what's happening, and here's what I can tell you at this moment. And when things change, I'm going to let you know what's changed. But it was, here's the order of how I'm going to keep everybody's job. The first thing, if we have to cut costs, is your benefits are going to go. So you might not get your 401, but you'll still have your job. And if there's still a problem, then the next phase would be, we'll look at salaries, including mine, and we'll have to readjust that. And the last thing is people will go. So he's actually spent time talking to all of his people and saying, and right now we're good. The company is doing really, really well because it's all online. They do all of the portals for finances online, but he keeps people informed, and so his communication is consistent. They know from his history that he's a guy who will let them know if things aren't going well. So they trust him, and that's huge because then he's getting the best out of his people. They're not looking for something else because they don't feel safe. So, you know, if you try and hide things from people because you think you're doing them a favor, you're not. People can see through that right away. You don't have to worry about people panicking. Let them know, yeah, it looks pretty bad out there. Like at a restaurant, if you walked in and there's not one customer and they go, everything's fine, we've got it under control. Well, probably not. So people would rather hear, listen, it looks pretty bad, but here's what I'm going to do. Here's what we're going to do. And people can trust that.
I have to go to my Nana, my grandma, who told me a long, long, long time ago, not that I'm aging myself, was if you're going to trust one person, it has got to be yourself first and foremost. And if you can't do that, you have to work on it. You have to work on it and put yourself in different situations and hope to God that you can handle it. And that you're not always going to make the right choices. Absolutely not, but that's where you learn. So, but what you do learn is you don't quit, you fix it, you do what you think is best, and like, oh, whoops, that was a bad one. But now I'm going to do this over here because that looks like it go. Oh, whoops, bad one. Now I'm going to do something. Yeah, because I think the thing is you don't quit. And if you trust yourself, you can trust other people. I don't know how you trust somebody else if you can't trust yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. It's a catch-22. So if you can't trust your own judgment on trusting another person, then like seriously.
Well, I want to go to Ward with this.
Can I add something?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Steve. Yeah.
The only thing I was going to add to that, I agree with everything everybody is saying. The one thing I would add is that I think it's important for us to challenge ourselves as well as trust ourselves. And what I mean by that is I think it's really important every once in a while to do that self-audit to find out if we're going along, this is the place we really want to be headed. There's a great quote from the philosopher Lao Tzu: if you do not change direction, you'll end up where you are heading. And too often I think we have the blinders on, and I think it's important to do that.
Awesome. I love that. Ward, in regards to you working with employees and employers, how much is this trust part of it and the communication and consistency that Lee is talking about? And even the challenge, the C word is going high on today's show. We've got COVID, we got these challenges, commitment, communication, consistency. Man, we got it going on. It's going with the 5 tenets of trust that Lee talks about as well in her books. But I mean, isn't that all part of that foundation? If the employer hasn't created that foundation and the employee hasn't created that foundation, I know it's hard when everyone starts to work together. You have to have those time and years of building, but transparency is important for both, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And the businesses that I work with have, by and large, been pretty good at that. Everyone understood that, yes, we're going to have some furloughs, layoffs, whatever you want to call it. But there seemed to be a trust there that when the time was right, then they would call people back, and that's what I've seen happening. Now, you did mention the unemployment issue, and that's created some issues because people can actually make more money on unemployment than if they come back to work. But like I said, I know how that system works, so I'm telling my clients, hey, look, send them a letter, and then file something with the EDD. So that honestly has ended up not being a big problem for some of my business clients. Now, I have gotten calls where people suspect that they've been terminated because for various reasons, but they think they're using the business is using COVID for smokescreen. And I don't fight that. I say, you know, you might be right, but COVID does give employers at this time a lot of leverage to do that kind of thing, and they may be doing it for a wrong reason. It could be actionable, but you know, when they're laying off half their workforce anyway, you know, is it really going to be discriminatory against you? We're going to have a harder time proving it. So, you know, in those situations where there's less trust, I've talked to people about that.
Wow. Is it only in California where people can get better unemployment funds than working? I mean, is that countrywide or statewide?
Yeah, no, it's countrywide because the federal government said, hey, in addition to whatever you're going to get, what you would normally get on unemployment, we're going to expand it in a couple different ways. One, we're going to add another $600 per week, so you're eligible for that. And we're also going to give it to independent contractors and people who don't normally qualify for it.
So this is only during
that
COVID.
was the Fed. Yeah, that was part of the that was part of the federal laws that were recently passed. Family First. Actually, it wasn't the Family First Act. It was the other one that I'm not thinking of right now. But yeah, they expanded that.
And right now they're looking at either a $2,000 stimulus check to go just like the other one, or a $4,000 tax credit for travel. And I'm like, I'll do whatever we need to do for travel in some ways, but like at the same time, that's kind of it's a tax credit, which is different. And how many people are going to be knocking the taxes? Like, you know, how many businesses are going to say this year sucked, you know? So this is going to be like when I look at this is going to be a 5-year drama at least, right? In a way. And it was interesting, Ward, you talk about the independent contractors. It's something you and Nancy and I have talked on the show for a long time is independent contractor law. So now they're going, oh, we'll do this for independent contractors. So now, man, you really want to be an independent contractor, or don't you? Because is it really working for them? Like the whole thing. Are you an independent contractor? Or are you not? So I saw a lot of that change happen since our last conversation, too. It looks like the musicians won in California against that one bill. And,
I had not seen that.
They won.
Awesome. Well, yeah, maybe.
But you never know. It could change again, right? Just like what happened with the Supreme Court with the LGBTQ thing that just happened yesterday, the discrimination. And so it's like one of those things. Whenever a law goes into effect, I just go, it's going to happen again. It's just going to happen again.
You often revisit the old issues time and time again. That's true.
Yeah, law is like a washing machine.
They don't seem to ever really go away. Like the old issues are still back with us today. But just look at the racism and all that. Somehow we move on from a problem, but we don't ever really seem to solve it sometimes.
Yeah. So, the independent contractor issue, does that keep going while COVID's happening? I mean, do things keep moving forward with things? Like, I mean, obviously it kind of is. But
you know what? That has taken a back seat because no matter who you are, work has been reduced. Now, my business has stayed pretty good, but my volume went down. There's no doubt about that. And anyone you talk to, pretty much they'll say the same thing. And some people are devastated. Some people are just completely devastated. So I've seen the range from completely devastated to, well, it's not quite as good as it was. So I think people are really focusing on that. And you know, I put out a little bit of AB5 stuff, but no one's been interested. That doesn't mean that the cases still aren't out there. The issues still aren't out there. My clients may have some issues too on it, but they're just not focusing on it right now. And that's the
I think people
honest truth.
are trying really hard to just survive too. There's survival mode, right? Depending on your situation. And I think that's also where there's survival mode and how much do I have? Do I have 3 months, 6 months? Do I have 1 month? Maybe less, depending on your situation. And I think that's where it goes to Steve here, Steve-Piacente, because that's when you go, okay, it's time for act whatever number, You know, you're going to have to do something as this change happens. Even if you're a business owner, you have to make. I know our business has changed. There's no way it hasn't. Even how we travel and publish and everything, it's going to change. So, Steve, that's going to, at the end of the day, everybody has to acknowledge that you're not doing business as normal again. It's never going to be the same.
Right. And I think that very fascinating stories are being written right now. When we come out of all of this, the people who are just kind of reinventing themselves, doing innovative and creative things, as we were talking about, sometimes it's forced and sometimes you do it yourself. But a lot of people are in survival mode now. And I think that, just there's going to be some really interesting stories about how people figured out a new path forward. Now, sometimes we're forced into that, either because, forget COVID for a moment, but, because they got fired or there were cutbacks or something happened, and then you have no choice. And then there's sometimes when people just realize, I'm not as happy or as fulfilled as I really think I should be, and so I'm going to make this change, which is, in a way, is harder to do because everybody around you is saying, oh, you should be happy. You have a good job. You have a good car. You have a nice house. And to kind of, pull up stakes and recast yourself in a moment like that, I think is much more difficult. But, with COVID, there's just the range is just incredible. People just devastated, people who are creating something out of nothing, and people who are reinventing themselves in an entirely new way.
I feel like right now, because I study nature, that's my deal, okay? And I understand fight or flight or freeze. And we're in freeze because we don't know how to fight a pandemic on a personal level other than face mask and don't go to places where you shouldn't go. Where are you going to fly
don't go
to
down that
get,
dark alley.
No. And then where are you going to
don't. It's true.
Where are you going to flee to because it's everywhere? So fight and flight doesn't work. So right now we're in freeze, and animals do it all the time. I watch them. I can see fight, flight, freeze. And we, as the human species, are in freeze until we work our way around it to figure out how to combat it or fight it, not physically, but mentally, and what we're going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again, what we're going to look at to figure out why it happened in the first place, people. We had forewarning. Just going to go there with that, and you got to put your thought processes in to move forward. So fight, flight, freeze, or what are we going to do about it? How are we going to move forward? And you can move forward, but if you don't think it through, you're going to have to move forward a lot of times.
Yeah, I think that's what you were saying, Steve, earlier. Like you have to make that plan.
Yeah. That's precisely why everybody needs a life coach.
There you go. See, Steve will ask you questions. Good one, Steve. Well done.
You go.
Well done. You go. Good setup, Nancy. Good setup for that.
That was beautiful, Nancy. I'll pay you later.
Trust is an emotion as well as an action too. So
yeah, the emotion part. That's important, right? So how you communicate the emotion, or you could, I think that's part of it.
It is, like we talk about trust, but it's simple and yet it's so complex. It's not easy, and so when you talk about trust, people talk about the emotion and the feeling of trust, but then there's also the behavior and trustworthiness and how that affects your reputation and everything. And so all of these really complex things that are happening right now that are preventing us from doing things that we want to do and need to do. And there's as many joyful stories that are happening right now as there are tragic stories. Yeah. And trust has a positive valence on emotions. So if you are feeling really positively, like you're in love or you're happy or you're joyful and everything, then your trust is usually a little higher. And when you're angry and negative and worried, you're not trusting as much. So it has this. It's interesting to see if I've talked to some people and they think, well, we're going to trust more because people are caring more about each other. And so from that perspective, they think that trust is going to go up. But I also see a lot of anger out there too.
Yeah. There's a lot.
And,
I was going to say, there's a lot going on in the world right now with anger of racism, which we have to. It's part of the whole COVID pandemic. Part of this whole thing is part of this whole situation. It all kind of connects, right? It's just within the era, and it's been going on for a long, long time. And racism comes from fear and lack of trust. And Steve,
insecurity.
Steve-Piacente.
I also think ignorance.
Ignorance, exactly.
Top.
But Steve,
Ignorance
your books,
and insecurity.
Your books, Bella Bootlicker and also Pretender, but Bella and Bootlicker. I mean, your books really have. Now we're going back to the washing machine. They keep going around with the cycles of what's going on from the past to now, right? You've got to kind of
just for
feeling that.
Yeah, for Ward and Lee, I grew up in New York, but somehow I wound up covering Southern politics for about 25 years, and
wow.
some of the things that I saw, still resonate with me to this day. But the things that I'm kind of talking about, a lot of which were taken for granted down south, and I don't want to generalize or stereotype, but I will say that as a reporter who covered Southern politics, I saw a lot of let's say intriguing things, and they served as the inspiration for the novels that I wound up ultimately writing. So that's what they're talking about here.
Yeah, because I think.
Can I make one more other point?
Yeah, go.
Sure. I just want to make one other little point because this is something that I have seen. I will bet that Lee and Ward have seen this as well. But when the pandemic struck, right? Everybody was like, I think of it like plane hurtling toward the ground at 500 miles an hour, and everybody's pulling up on the controls, meaning how are we going to keep the business afloat, right? How are we going to keep the plane in the air? And then we figured that out, but in the process, we realized, looking back, that there were a lot of gaps that we left uncovered. And I am seeing this in the trainings that I'm doing all the time. And when we talk, Lee, when you were talking about trust, it made me think of this because when people are meeting one another online for the first time, and face-to-face as well, but online is because that's what we're talking about now, it's those first 10 seconds, how you show up, that really go a long way to creating that first impression and establishing trust or not trust. And so we have found ourselves actually creating a module around how to show up, how to put your best virtual self forward. And I'm talking about things like everything from lighting and audio to your camera position, to your
not the lighting.
To your background.
Please turn the lights off.
Bored.
Sorry.
But
well,
these big organizations.
I was going to say it would be interesting to hear what Malcolm Gladwell says about blink in the age of COVID, especially because we are meeting people and having to make those, like you said, split-second judgments, but it's on video, especially when there's a delay because we can't see the body language. And so much of how we show up and how we judge people is watching not just their face but their body and listening to their tone, and a lot of that is missing.
Yep.
And if you pick your nose, it's going to be on delay. I'm just going to say, don't pick your face, don't pick your nose.
Okay. I have to say, I have to go leopard, like the stalking of the prey, whether it's for a good purpose or like I need to eat or I need to make a business deal. I'm going to go leopard with the eyes never waver. They go straight for the prey. They have 100,000% focus on the goal. They don't have like, oh, my cell phone rang. No, they don't have that. They have 100%
This
focus.
is it. In the moment.
They're in the moment, and it is, oh my gosh, I'm going to spend all this energy to take this buck down so I can eat, or whatever it is, or fight, or mate, or whatever it is, but they're 100% there. We're not ever 100% there. We're divided in so many places that we can't be our best. And that's the end of my speech.
No, it's a good, I think that's a good point. And it's a good point. And you know, another thing that we're seeing in the different organizations that we work with is that sometimes people, when they have the choice, they opt out of the video and they just do audio. And to me, that's a mistake, because at some point during the year, they're going to have their annual performance review. And how do you want to be remembered? As the disembodied voice, or as the person who is dressed nice, looking good, and contributing to the meeting?
Wow, this is interesting, Ward. I mean, do you see court cases happening this way? Like, what happens with class action? Zoom?
Wow. Litigation's really been on hold, at least in most of California and in San Diego. They just opened it up at the end of May, so you can go into court. But the order says that they are trying to have teleconferencing as much as possible. So it's really up to the judges whether you come in or not, or whether you teleconference, or whether you can just file motions on the papers and they'll just rule. So they're really trying to still do social distancing and keeping people out of the courts, but they're allowing it to some degree now.
Because I also heard that there's a lot of lawsuits on the criminal side, especially, where there was a lawsuit out here in Colorado where a young lady got murdered, and they had to fight. It's the same kind of lawsuit as what happened with Nancy's brother when he got shot and murdered. The guy bailed to Mexico, and America's Most Wanted got the son of a bitch, which was great, and brought him back in. Sorry, I can call him that. It's our show, and it's our uncle, my uncle, your brother. That guy finally, I mean, it took a long time. But they caught him. Kid on a train, and then ended up from Florida down to Mexico, this whole thing. Finally got him back. And then it was like this whole thing about whether or not the death penalty, it was crazy. This whole thing happened. But
he got 75 years.
All these delays happen. Every time there's a delay. And he murdered two people at my uncle's. He shot my uncle and my uncle's employee. So all in the back, just pepper sprayed him. But this is my point of this kind of thing that happens. When something gets delayed, your cases can get delayed for years, and then the trial never happens. There's people that are also out. They get out. Even look what's going on with it's crazy. So I understand the COVID situation, but when it comes to lawsuits and things like that, I'm like, and then it's weird because you're going to have like Zorro go into court if it's like, are you guilty or not? So I'm just kind of like, it's kind of this weird situation where there have been cases that needed to be tried that have been waiting for 10 years because of all these extraditions, because people bail over the border, bring them back, and now this one family, they're not going to see the justice in time, and they're worried because the guy could get out. I mean, it happens. All these things happen. So I wonder about that with what's going to happen full blown. We're going to, like Steve, you said there's going to be a lot of stories. I think the stories are going to just be huge down the road, but these are stories that impact people's lives,
Yeah.
And on the crime side, I think it's bad.
Well, you're talking about criminal cases, and the courts have really stayed open for criminal cases. Now they've done many arraignments through video conferencing, so they've again tried to reduce the amount of contact. And because I don't practice criminal law anymore. I did years ago. I think they did put off some trial dates for like 90 days or something like that, but it was a short period of time. So I don't think there is an axiom, slow justice is no justice, but I don't think you're seeing that because of COVID to a great degree. I mean, even in the civil arena where, that's where I practice, they have pushed off trials for 180 days. So if you had a trial date, so 180 days. But to me, that might hurt you, but you're probably not going to lose evidence. Memories probably won't die over that period of time. I mean, when you get into 10 years, you've got those evidence problems.
Yeah,
180 days is
Give
probably
me a bottle
okay.
of wine, I'll remember everything again. No. It's all good.
So I think it's going to be okay because of COVID. I don't think we'll have too many of those problems. I think they've been pretty careful and things are opening up.
Yeah. So now let's look at the positives. I mean, we're talking about the dirty stuff that's happening, but let's look at moving forward and closing because, it is there's like, Lee, you're talking about there's a lot of positive stories out there, and Steve, there are good stories out there. People have rallied together and done a lot of things, and just even looking right now with the protests are a positive thing. No matter how hard they are actually a positive thing because hopefully they will create some change that is needed to be. I'm not going to get into everybody's political part of it, but just at least it's a voice, But Ward, in your industry, for employers, employees, business owners, what do you see that what can they do to make things positive moving forward into the next 3 months? And what do you see that is positive?
Well, maybe what I see is positive is a little easier to answer because in San Diego, where most of my practice is, they've really pushed to open up, and they have. So business now, maybe that will make a new peak of COVID cases. We haven't seen that yet, but San Diego's been pretty good about limiting the number of cases and keeping social distancing, et cetera, and that's why it's opening. So I think in the immediate future, things are going to start getting better, and things have opened up. So that's a positive now that I think we're going through. Yeah. What can they do in the next 90 days? Well, you know what? I've been in groups who have done this as part of their exercises, mostly entrepreneurs, and they've been pushed to put together opening up plans. And now you can start implementing them in most businesses. And so I would say, have a good plan of how you're going to open up. Remember, you got to meet all the health requirements if you're open to the public, et cetera, et cetera. So you got to have a plan for that and a plan for how you're going to deal with your employees. It may be a little different now. Maybe you still have people working remotely. So you got to think about all those different aspects of running a business now, and be ready to implement it as soon as you can.
And isn't there also things? Okay, sorry.
I
Personal.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, I was going to say, isn't there also something in the law that would say there's personal responsibility too? Like if you're the one who's going to walk down the street and go into places without a mask, and you're the one who already knows you might be infected, but you're still doing it. There's got to be a level of personal responsibility. Like nobody created this pandemic on purpose. I would go out there with that, but stuff happens. So there's something inside of you that says you need to do your best due diligence and have some personal responsibility by the way you behave and react.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And what we've seen in my neck of the woods is people have been pretty good about that. No one's perfect. Maybe people visit people that they're not technically allowed to, but I think people are really trying to limit it and really trying to stay home and generally. And so I think that's why San Diego's been able to open up starting in the end of May, and much more drastically since then. So I think that's very important, and I think I've seen it at least where I live.
Cool. Have you seen any businesses change over in regards to discrimination? I've seen a lot of businesses turn around and say, "Hey, we're not going to do this. We're going to support, Black people and Blacks' safety." Have you seen any of that in regards, with business changes? And would you think that should be something that everyone should even have legal counsel on before they do it? You know what I mean? It's kind of a interesting think?
Well, yeah, I think I normally work with clients who have between 25 and 100 employees. So you're not talking about these BMFs. Now the BMFs are coming out and they're saying,
or Starbucks, by the way. Oopsie.
Starbucks. We're all for the protesters. We know that change needs to be made, and they're making a big deal out of it, and they should. But the clients that I represent mostly, they're just trying to get business started. They aren't even thinking about that, quite frankly. And maybe they'll think about it later. But the people I know, they're good people. I mean, they're not doing any of this stuff. I mean, really, I haven't seen it, and I know that they're good people. So I don't know that it's a major issue with them personally and how they run their businesses. But it wouldn't hurt to focus on it more and publicize it as well, so you can take advantage of the fact that, hey, I'm trying to do more.
Yeah, and if you're publicizing it, you have to now you go, Lee. That brings us to you, Lee. That means if you publicize it, you better have the trust behind it. You got to stick to your commitment and integrity, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and be able to show that you've talked a little bit about the 5 C's. Well, one of them is competence. You have to be able to have the competence to be able to do what you're telling everyone you can do. So they all get together. But the good stories I'm seeing is just even in my own backyard in the neighborhood, people are coming out, and I see people going to the end of their driveway and having conversations with their neighbor, which I never saw before. I'm hearing the kids playing out in the backyard because they're driving their parents crazy, so they're kicking them out in the backyard. But still, it's those the sounds that I hadn't heard for a while, which are really encouraging, and people walking more. And Nancy, you talk about how much you love nature. Well, I'm thinking that cars that aren't on the road as much are making our air is a little sweeter, and
for sure
we're seeing more nature. We're seeing more things come alive, and I think that once we become accustomed to that, I'm hoping that we don't go backwards and say, okay, let's go out and pollute.
Yeah,
I agree, 100%.
Yeah, can I tell you one thing, Lee? As we were driving, going through Colorado and everything, we did the Grand Mesa, which is this national scenic. Ward, you know about this area, Grand Mesa down.
Yeah, sure do.
Down the highest tabletop mesa in the world. Thank you. No matter what, Colorado has just put me to my limits on, it's pushed me beyond my limits on mountain passes and whatever. But I've done it. It's very cool. But this was the interesting thing. We did this other side coming through Curacante National Recreation Area, and we did the 10,000, 11,000 feet thing, but there's all these pullouts. And I have to tell you, I've never seen this for years. I mean, we do park travels, that's what we do. The pullouts were covered with green grass. You couldn't, you keep off the grass, man. It was like that, even though it was in Colorado, which was funny. But anyway, so nature did kind of make this comeback, and it's like, do you drive? I'm not going to drive on that. And besides, it's on the edge. Screw that. I'm moving on. But there really was grown over patches of the pullouts of nobody being there because of the COVID thing, which I find very interesting. It's a new thing. That was a new thing that we saw on the road, which it's, and I think also at the same time while we say all that, people are going to be traveling now. They're going to be doing road trips, RV sales, camping sales, all of that stuff is up 600%. So that's what's going to happen in America, 600%. So we're going to be traveling a lot more, getting to know our country. So let's try and do it where, stop slow travel. You don't need to, gas it all up, but you can do it. There's slow travel and enjoy the country and learn about nature and history, and try to go midweek if you can. Try and go to places you haven't been and support the small towns. That's one thing we can do, is do the scenic byways, do the off the beaten path destinations that really need the help too. They really do. They were battling beforehand. They sure as heck need your help now. So see if you can do that, whatever you can do. But Steve, I want to close with you on this. Moving forward in positivity, What are some steps folks can do right now?
Well, first of all, I want to echo. Well, another thing that I think is up 600% is appreciation for things that really matter. I think we kind of got lost in the humdrum, in the hubbub of everything, and the fast pace, and going downtown, and all of these things, and we've kind of been forced into, and this is what Lee was talking about, going back to kind of simpler things, and I think appreciation for that is really going to be up. And then I guess my last thought on all of this would be that as we go back, and I'm assuming we take into account that people, once you have met your basic needs, right, food, clothing, shelter, once that has been restored and we're taking care of that, I think it's important for people to remember another quote that I really love by Lao Tzu, which is that new beginnings are often disguised as painful endings. I really have come to believe that over my life. So that's what I would share at the end here.
Oh, that's a perfect closing here, and we want to thank you all for joining us. I know we always go over time because we all get chatty with this, and it's all fascinating, and at the same time, moving forward is important. Even Dr. Jackie said, we're not all going to stay home. It's been 3 months. It's time to get the hell out, go out and enjoy the sunshine. She didn't say get the hell out. I said it. But she's like, get out. We can't all be closed in. That's not healthy either. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Jackie. Her book, again, is Women and Heart Disease, The Real Story. You can get it on Amazon. It's a bestseller. Go to her website, womenandheartdiseasebook.com. She is awesome. You can also see everybody up on our site, blendradioandtv.com. Everyone that's been on there, you'll get their websites, hear past interviews and articles and all kinds of good stuff. But I want to give a shout out to Dr. Jackie for joining us in between patients. Steve Piacente's website is stevepiacente.com. He's got a great video on there too, and you also follow his articles on LinkedIn and medium.com. And also Lee Brovedani is leebrovedani.com, and that's L-E-A for Lee, Brovedani.com. Her latest book is Trust Me. Very good book. Highly recommend. It's a good time to read it, as is Steve's book is Your New Fighting Stance, Good Enough Isn't, and You Know It. Right? Just stick it right to the core there, Steve.
There you go.
Boom.
I'm just looking at Brovedani and Piacente. It sounds like a good law firm that could challenge Ward out there in San Diego.
I know. Heinrichs.
Bring them on.
Hey, listen, I'm a Smith and I had Wessons. No, okay? Smith and Wessons. But anyway, no. But everyone, Ward is over in San Diego. He's a California employment lawyer, so he works with everyone in California, employers and employees, especially in San Diego. But I know he likes to go to San Francisco because it's expensive up there. So
I do like to go up there.
Fun, though.
Yeah, bestemploymentattorneysandiego.com is his website. And are you still doing free consultations for people to call you and for you to suss out if it's a match or not?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Just did one this morning. Talked to someone it was probably 30 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, and do free consultations.
So I have a question, Ward. How would you negotiate with a skunk that just walks up onto your patio while you're sitting there having cocktails?
Well, that doesn't sound like a legal question, so maybe I'll pass that one on. No, negotiate with a skunk? Holy smokes.
Yeah.
I just pour him a drink and say, don't spray me.
I know.
Would that work?
Listen, when we got to Colorado here in Florence, the first night I called our friend Eva to her house and we're singing. I'm like, Eva, man, people really are smoking a bunch of weed. She said, Lisa, it's called skunk. And I said, but I know there's skunky. And it turns out it really is a skunk that hangs out here. So anyway.
And then he just comes up and then looks at you and you're like, hi.
That's Nancy's positive ending is there's always a skunk in the backyard. Just keep your eyes or your nose peeled, right? But we're going to close with the song Together We Stand by Nicki, Kris. And I think that is the positive thing out of this entire last few months, right? Really starting since February. As much anger, hatred, sadness, sickness, we've also seen these beautiful stories as everybody's talked about today. And Together We Stand is an important thing. The more we unite together and work together to move forward, the faster we will do it and the better we will do it. And so this is a song from Nicki, Kris. She's been on a lot of our shows. She'll be on our show on June 24th. It'll be the fourth day of our Summerfest, which kicks off on June 19th. But here it is, Together We Stand. You can keep up with her at nikkikris.com. And keep up with our summer festival. Kicks off this Friday. Go to bigblendradio.com for that. Thank you all for joining us. Take care and be safe and stay happy.
You too.
Great to meet you guys.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Faces and places I've seen before. Not sure what